House of Cards podcast, the show where we break down the art of creative real estate investing. Join us as we dive into the world of real estate with insider tips and tricks for making your investments go further. From buying with no money down to flipping properties for profit, we've got you covered. Plus, stay tuned for expert guest speakers who will share their knowledge and experience in this ever-changing market. So grab a seat and get ready to learn the secrets to success in real estate investing. And now, from Alaska to New York, your hosts, Chris James and Jesse Stanton.
Yo, good morning, guys.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hello.
Good.
I love it when our show extends beyond just Alaska to New York. As you guys can see, we've got an amazing individual who has a fantastic beard. I'll hopefully be getting there. But Johnathan Curry, dude, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're obviously not in Alaska.
Not right now.
Where are you at today, bro?
So today I'm in Sanchez, Dominican Republic.
DR, okay. Yeah. I think Chris knows a little bit about DR. I have heard of it. I know that it is a place on the planet. Probably got a little less snow than Alaska does right now.
Yeah, DR is something interesting, actually. Those, who may or may not know this, but my son's mother is Dominican. And, her entire family, they travel back and forth all the time. And actually, my family, we're actually going to DR literally the third week of April. And we're going to be there.
Oh, you're on mute, homie.
What about now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Leave me, Charlie.
So, yeah, we'll be there about 13 days. It's going to be a pretty neat vacation. But, yeah, DR, Johnathan, and more so, are you investing there as well, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so my wife is also Dominican, and we have most of our real estate portfolio is down here. Some people may not realize, but the Dominican Republic has the largest economy in the Caribbean. And for those who are wondering where it is, we're just north of Puerto Rico. So like you could practically throw a rock and hit Puerto Rico. Immediately south of Cuba. But yeah, so we buy properties here, and most of our properties here are actually long-term rentals, so residentials. A lot of people down here do the vacation rentals and stuff, which we've looked into, but since we kind of have a lifelong attachment here, we go more the direction of building, homes and apartments, essentially, is what it amounts to.
Interesting. Now, what is that like? Because Chris and I have purchased a couple of properties in Alaska from people who specifically are moving from Alaska. I think one of them was actually moving to Florida. And he was like, dude, Jesse, the last thing I want to do is be managing a property in Alaska while I'm sitting on Miami Beach sipping Mai Tais. But for you, you're like, not only will I do that, I want to live in Alaska, and I'm going to go buy properties beyond Florida. What is that like, bro, to own, to have your portfolio down there? How many miles is that, by the way? Is it like 5,000 miles?
It's a lot. It's like, for me to get from my home in Alaska to my home here in DR, it takes me about 22 hours of travel.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay. So it's a mission.
Yeah, to say the least.
But on the remote aspect of things, before real estate, I was a software developer, and I started doing that when I was 18. And the type of clients that I was working with, and just the lifestyle that created, my entire life was remote. My programming teams were remote. My clients were remote. And so I got really good at figuring out how to manage complex things and what things you could just kind of let go of and things you have to accept. So as it relates to real estate in the Dominican Republic, there are things that you may be immediately accustomed to in the States that are just not so here. And you simply have to accept that. For example, in the States, when you own and manage real estate, you have a requirement to maintain that real estate to a specific standard. And if you don't, you know, somebody's going to come and knocking. In the Dominican Republic, that is not the case. The tenants are responsible for maintaining the properties entirely, 100%. Roof cap caves in, they got to fix it. Electric goes out, they have to fix it. They want water, they have to supply it. So
really,
yeah.
Wow.
So the flip side of that is the laws are very tenant friendly. So this is, on one side, it's very good for the long-term component because people get very endeared to the spaces, and you know they basically treat it like it's their own home. So, but there are rental caps. For example, you can't charge more than 1% of the value of the property.
Oh wow.
And you
it meets the 1% rule down there, is what I hear.
it's a 1% rule.
Yeah, there we go. All right, I like it already.
But there's also it's kind of like, you know, they get to retain a lot of like autonomy over the property, but if you want the property back, you can effectively say, you know, hey, you know, we're moving back in and, you know, building something else. And there really isn't any muss or fuss over that. So what we do is, I don't particularly like to have my tenants caring for some of the major systems of the properties, because they generally will try to do something on their own. So, for example, true story, went and checked in on one of our houses, and I look across the house and I see an electrical outlet wired directly into the electrical panel. And of course, my question is, what happened to the breaker? And why is there a plug just like wired into the panel?
Right.
Oh, the breaker broke. So instead of replacing the breaker, they just hardwired a plug right into the main. And you got little kids running around everywhere. You got wires hanging out. And, you know, this is one of those things that normally somebody would probably just lose it. They just, you know, that would make them see red. But
right.
For me,
but real estate has taught you to handle your emotions
you know,
with everything that goes wrong.
One step at a time. You think that you've seen, you know, something that you're like, that must be it. No, there's always another level. And you just have to know there's always another level. And so you just look at it. And of course, my first question is, what happened? And what is the reason that you didn't, you know, get another breaker?
Mm-hmm.
Well, for someone that's coming from the States, you know, a breaker is like $1.50. And so it's kind of no brainer. You go buy one. But for a Dominican family, that could actually be a significant amount of money, because it's about a 50-to-1 ratio. So those types of things, you know, obviously I'm like, don't touch the electric. If there's a problem, we will fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, my wife was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I said, you know, there's a balance between how people are used to doing things and taking responsibility when safety is a factor. Mm-hmm. And so there are things that other, you know, owners of property they just wouldn't do. That for me, I'm like, no, we replace breakers, we fix electric. We like last summer, I installed a water system at the house because it didn't have one. Fixing sewer issues, because the sewer systems here are effectively, if you're lucky, they're just pipes that run really deep into the jungle and dump out somewhere.
Wow.
That's if you're lucky. The soils are really clay, and knowledge on how to install proper septic systems and leach fields and that sort of thing is not, it's not very ubiquitous. And so, so you learn. These are the things I'm going to take responsibility for. These are the things that they're going to take responsibility for. And like I said, they stay for a really long time. And when you have people that are, stable renters and they're raising their families in these spaces, and you kind of use that as a way to hold property. So we have a house, for example, in the middle of like practically downtown Sanchez. And for a long time, Sanchez was just a little farming community. Like, and over the past 3 or 4 years, it has just exploded. And then after, the global events of 2020 to 2023, this area is just incredibly grown. A lot of people just mass exodus out of the cities and came out to what to them is the country, which is kind of interesting. And so that property, we're gonna put a multi-family unit on it.
Wow.
So
you guys are building a multifamily unit?
What's that?
You guys are building one?
Yeah, we will be building one on that property, and that's a whole nother ball of wax. Building things here, that's you have to stay really on top of it. And for me, I don't think anybody who doesn't actually know how to build buildings should build in the Dominican Republic. If you don't know how to do it, then you should find somebody who really does know how to do it and vet them with like 2 or 3 other people that know how to do it to make sure that the person you chose really actually does know how to do it.
Yeah. I feel that, bro. I feel the same way about paperwork.
It's not that different. You're building a foundation on something, and if you mess it up, it can have long-term repercussions. It's not to be taken really lightly, especially in an area like they build concrete homes here, but they also have earthquakes, and so there are a lot of considerations that we take for granted in the States that is just not common knowledge here. And so, you can have a beautiful structure that you think is sound, and, in 10 years, the floor falls through. So,
Wow.
Yeah. So it's just, for me, I took probably about 5 or 6 years of like visiting construction sites, really keeping an eye on how people build buildings here. And then when I started building my own buildings here, I learned things that it just didn't ever occur to me. Like here, the plumbers and the electricians are the same trade. Like literally they're the same trade. So if you hire a plumber, you're also hiring an electrician, which I had an ironic experience where one day I had about a 1/4-inch pipe of water dumping into a light switch. and I mean, it was just pouring out of the wall, and the light in the bathroom was still on. And I said, this is what happens when your electricians are your plumbers. You might get a water pipe that goes directly into your electric box.
Oh my God.
And I could not make that up. I of course I have video of it. I'll send it to you one of these days.
Wow.
It's so, you're every step of the way, you're really having to learn a whole different level of vetting people. In the States, you assume things like plumb, level, square. That's not a thing here. That's just not like, reading a plan, like drawing a picture of this is where I want the walls and this is the dimension and all of those things. That, I mean, even the people that I have found that do read the plan, ironically, still don't follow it. So you really have to like be diligent, and it's not something that you can't build remote and expect that you're going to get an outcome that you designed. That's just not a reality. And there's so many details that go into building a building, and the physics don't change whether you're in the States or here. So if somebody plumbs in back-to-back toilets, there's a specific a Y piece that has to go in there to prevent one toilet from flushing into the other toilet. And on actually this house that I'm sitting in right now, I showed up, and the piece that I specifically said that needed to go there wasn't there. And they were about, they're getting it was like the inspection's ready to pour the concrete floors. And I pointed out, that has to be a Y. Like, I showed what that piece was. And they said, oh, well, we couldn't find it. So what they did is they just piped 90s, like straight across from each other.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, there's no way that can work. And so they had to visit 4 cities to find this piece. And they said, oh, we finally found one. And I had to have them remove what they had done and put it in correctly.
Oh
if
my
I hadn't
gosh.
done that, the toilets you'd be sitting on the toilet and somebody would flush on the other side and you'd get a surprise.
Like throwing a firecracker in there or something, man. Dude, that is insane. Are companies not held liable the same way for doing shit like that? No pun intended.
No. So things we're used to, like inspections, permits, all the paperwork and stuff that people despise, that they're like, I gotta go pull permits, and that's all this extra money. I know how to do it. All of that kind of stuff, none of that exists. So there isn't anybody. And so on one hand, for me, I really like it, because when I come here, for a lot of people, might feel like the total Wild West. For me, this is what real freedom feels like. Like, you are responsible for the outcomes of your actions, of your efforts, and you can't just give that responsibility to somebody else. And so if you want to do something and you want it done correctly, you need to educate yourself. You need to learn how to communicate those things and stay on top of them, and don't make assumptions that somebody is going to just do it correctly. Inspect what you expect.
Interesting.
So
Angel asks, is permitted work required, or is everyone just a jack of all trades? Totally interested in looking at properties outside of the U.S. Would love to hear some more about your success in investing there.
So no, permitted work is not required, and no, not everyone is a jack of all trades.
Wow.
I would say that by and large, people are specialists. There's just a large degree as to how skilled they are. So we're accustomed to an environment where our tradespeople get trade-specific training. Even though that's diminished significantly over the years, it's still a thing. And so if you're a welder, you can say, well, did you learn how to weld on a farm, or are you a certified welder? But here, there isn't a certified welder. And you're also limited by the people in the immediate area, or maybe the next town. So from where I'm at, I can pull from about 4 different cities to find qualified workers. But you still have to really figure out if people know what they're doing. And so to kind of provide a contrast, so right now I'm also one of my properties in Alaska before I left was having some rot issues addressed. And this is a job that should have taken somebody 2 days max. And it has been a month and a half. And the reason why it has taken so long, communication breakdowns and just straight incompetence. And so, but what that safety net is that they have to pull permits. A building inspector has to come out and look at the work that they did and put their stamp on it and take pictures. And so that verification step doesn't exist here. And so there isn't a safety net for people that don't actually understand the trade that's being applied. And so, and you can get people that have really, nice trucks and, professionals, even the people who run the main electric services here. Their work is not even something that would, like, somebody who is a do-it-yourselfer that goes to Home Depot on a regular basis could probably do the work better. And that's not necessarily a knock at the skill set. It's that we see a level of work product that they don't ever get to see. So what they see around them is good.
Mm-hmm.
It works. It's functional.
Yeah.
And the type of projects that they usually work on are fairly straightforward, like one light switch and one light, and so they can do that work really well.
Yep.
When I had this house built, I requested several 3-way switches and a 4-way switch, and they told me that wasn't even possible. Now I can wire a 4-way switch myself, and you can look it up on YouTube and learn how to do it. But that level of work is just not something that they really want that they're doing. So that kind of design work, you have to really you have to stay on top of it. Everything you have to stay on top of.
That is really interesting. This is a really great question, and it kind of ties into what. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris. I didn't mean to interrupt you, bro.
No, you're fine. I always think more so, John. Would you prefer to invest in the States over the DR, or are you having like mixed feelings, or is it pretty even to you since you're naturally already doing it?
So for me, the benefits are the same type of benefits as someone who diversifies their portfolio. So I'm of the mindset that where I make my money, the country that I make my money in isn't necessarily the same country that I want to store my money in, which isn't necessarily the same country that I want to live in. And by creating a diversity in these areas, so as an example, in the Dominican Republic, you own your land forever. The government can't take it. There is no eminent domain. There is no property taxes. There's it's literally, that's your land forever. And you can do whatever you want. If somebody wants to put in a racetrack next to your house, I hope you have a really good relationship with your neighbors and convince them not to do it, because there isn't any government entity that's going to stop them. And so, it has its trade-offs that way, but it's also an area where the land is fertile. So like a lot of the land that I own, we grow coconuts, we sell them, we sell the coconut coir, we graze cattle, we have pineapples, we have mangoes, we have oranges. So it's for me, what I consider to be like real land value is like, does it have fresh water? Can I grow food on it? And so that is not the mentality that I use when I'm buying and investing in the States. So, and then also the ability to earn dollars and spend pesos has a real lifestyle benefit for me and my family. So it's not one or the other, in my opinion.
That's really interesting. So do they not, it doesn't sound like they zone at all. Like you don't have different like residential commercial zones or whatever. Like you can, somebody who owns the land next, you can go build a gigantic commercial building.
And they are right now across the street.
Oh,
Wow.
If I want a business, I could build one in my front yard and hang a shingle.
wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So let's get it. This is actually a really great question. It kind of ties into another question I wanted to ask you, but creative. What does that look like down there? He says, since you're, or she, we can't tell, Facebook user, right above where you guys are watching this live, right in the description, at the bottom of the description, there's a link that you can select or that you can click to share your name so we can see who you are. Because I know you guys can see it on your end, but unfortunately, we can't see it on our end until you click that link. But they said, since you're holding long-term, won't it be better to sell on a wrap, really long-term or equivalent in DR? Or are you more concerned with the overall property condition of the property if you foreclose them?
Yeah, so great question. A lot of it is, so first, a wrap is a tool, right? And we have a lot of tools available to us. For me, I have an interest in the long-term holdings of the land here because it's something that is a legacy thing for me, my children. And so I'm not interested in selling the lands. In the States is different because it's not something that can be held forever. If something, eventually I'm going to die, but the government's still going to tax that property. And if there isn't a stream of income to pay for those taxes, then even a property that I own outright can still be taken from my family. That's not the case here. So in the States, for me, it would be very smart to sell properties on a really long wrap and have that income, convert it into a note and not have the overhead. But for me, I look at the land here differently because the situation is a lot different. I can own it forever. And so I can build a building, I can tear down a building, I can build another building, I can drill wells, I can provide income, I can provide opportunities for the people that are around me, family members, and there's nobody that can tell me no, and nobody that can take it away. And so now there doesn't mean that I wouldn't do that here. It's definitely something that can be done. And I do look for opportunities like that because some properties are great for development, but it's not necessarily something that I would want to own long-term because maybe the area, there are a lot of places like in the interior of the island that are, I don't know how to describe it. They feel incredibly remote and they would be very hard to get out to on a regular basis to make sure that everything was still there. So in those instances, I would do that. It just so happens that for me right now, the opportunities that are occupying my time are more in development of like building my portfolio here.
No, I love that. And just DR in general, like people talk about Hawaii, people talk about Puerto Rico, people talk about all these different things, but I think this is more so a perfect case scenario where people really need to understand their markets before it really just, hey, I want to buy in this specific market, but don't know nothing about it.
Yeah.
And because this is actually the first time I'm hearing about like the 1%, like over there as far as rent and them actually being taking care of everything. That, in my eyes, that's pretty neat. Actually, that's pretty neat. I'm not gonna lie, I like that.
All of a sudden, his family trip to the DR just changed fundamentally.
Right, it just totally changed. Oh, that's not. I like that. I definitely like it.
The finance element is really interesting here because in the United States we have the 30-year mortgage, which was essentially legislated. It was not something the banks asked for. It was something that was put into law saying, hey, this is what it is. And it has created the real estate environment that we see in the States. That doesn't exist here. A lot of the mortgage notes here are from the banks, and the banks say, hey, 15% for 10 years. But the kicker is that the land isn't less expensive and it's denominated in dollars. So like here later on today after this, I'm going to go see a house that's up on a hill, looks beautiful, and they want 300 grand for it. So like, this is something that kind of like initially starts to turn people off when they're looking, because they're like, well, wait a second, the land is the same, but the rent's lower and they have all of these things. But being able to look at what an opportunity a land has is like, yeah, that house is there, but you can still short-term rent it. It's a country, and it's not a very big one. So people are driving from one end of it to the other to visit their family, to go, to do all of the things that we like to do. We go out to the country, we go on hikes, we, go out to the islands and hang out at resorts. And so all of that still exists. So people are still renting houses. They're still, want to rent rooms out of places that are near their family for the holidays. And then on top of that, you have all of this land. So those crops, you plant them, and then you hire somebody to come and harvest them.
Wow.
And that person will come, they'll harvest, if it's coconuts, they come cut down all the coconuts, they bring them all out and they go sell them at the market and they give you your cut. And so you're the way that you look at how do I get additional value out of my land is you start thinking less of like, can I park an RV there and charge, $100 a month for it? Or can I rent out the garage warehouse for, $200 a month? You start thinking, okay, what crop is here? What can I sell? What can I grow? What else can I do with this property? And of course, if there's things like, if there's water, I mean, people pay 50 pesos for 5 gallons of water. And so, all of these things, they begin to add up. And of course, you're looking at what is the output. I mean, it's never, in my opinion, a wise decision to earn pesos and spend dollars. But if it's going the other direction, then it really can augment your existing portfolio. And like I said, for me, this is a quality of life thing. And so my properties here actually fund the family that lives here. So like my wife and I, we don't take any of that money ourselves. That pays for, my grandmother's medical, their food, their water, their electricity, transportation, all of those types of amenities that they still need. When I built this house that I'm in right now, I separated off 2 bedrooms and a bathroom because the cousins are still living at the house. So the mentality changes, the quality of life changes. But now it's like, now I have property that, this becomes, it doesn't cost me anything to be here. And the effect that has on the people around me is outsized. I can help people in ways that I would not be able to help in the States. And so that's what factors in for me. I can change the entire future of bloodlines by having projects that are going and not just, sucking all of that money out, but just putting it right back in. Because now I have electricians that know what they're doing. So I don't need to pull out the profits from their day-to-day work. I just need them to do the job that I want done correctly.
Yeah.
Right. So the mentality becomes a very different thing because I'm having to build so much infrastructure that in the States, we just, you just call somebody, hey, you licensed electrician? Yeah, come to my house, and they'll charge you $85 an hour. Right. And so your calculation when you underwrite a property is totally different. Whereas here, you kind of go, labor is very inexpensive. So as an example, one of the cousins, they make the equivalent of, they're making 7,000 pesos a month. So that's like making, imagine if you made, $2,500 a year.
Really?
Yeah.
That's what that's like?
Yeah. So for $7,000, I can hire a person for the year and pay them very well. That's like 20,000 pesos a month is a decent wage. Now,
Wow.
so like I said, it's a lever that is massive. And so with the right mentality and the right heart, like I said, it takes, for me, I've been, in this community for years. When I walk down the street, I talk to people, I build those relationships. I don't just, hide out in my concrete castle. And so I can when I'm here, my kids are in school. I don't just keep everything separate, So now you have relationships, you have people, and you begin changing people's lives in a positive way. Because when they come, you teach them a skill, they're going to go apply that skill across the board. And now they're the person who knows something that other people don't know. And that begins to add value into the community.
Let me ask you something. How come you don't have Americans that are coming down there and they just start up a contracting business, take the same standards that we have here in the United States and completely just blowing everybody else out of the water? Everything is done right. Everything's up to a certain standard.
You want to help me, Jesse? Because that's exactly that. You right there. That I'm an American here, working to build exactly what you just described. And
really,
yeah. And so the other element, you say, okay, why aren't Americans doing that? When I go out, the little kids in the streets, they'll be like, Italiano, Italiano. They don't think I'm an American. Most most of the foreigners that come to the island are from Germany. They're from Europe. A lot of
Really?
Americans that they see, like their vision of an American is the more negative of the stereotype.
So when they say Italiano, you just kind of roll with it.
Oh, I'm gonna be like, Americano. No, because it's to them, it's just a foreigner. It's just somebody that's not Dominican, right? But the point that I'm trying to highlight is that there just aren't that many Americans that are coming here and interacting in that way. There are a lot of Dominicans that have built lives in the States that come back, but they're not coming back to bring skills in business in the way that someone who has like my mindset to do. There are people that come back and they put a tremendous amount of money back into the economy. They do hire a lot of people to do things, but it would take somebody that wanted to so this is what I'm up against. This is what I've been building. I have to build a trade school. I have to build a hardware store to supply the things that you would teach in that trade school. And then I have to have the projects that they can build to not only learn in real life situations, but that would also provide value in a space where none of that is material in the short run, because you could build that same building incorrectly for cheaper. And so it would be like doing it right for the sake of doing it right, for the hope of elevating the skill sets and standards of a workforce. And so when you say, why doesn't somebody just come and do that? It's like, because there's no money in that. It's the equivalent of a nonprofit closed loop supply chain for building. And so, like for me, like why would I do it? Because this is my home. This is my community. And I look at the future of the kids here, and I look at what they have to look forward to, and I don't see anybody else doing this kind of stuff. And the other thing is that even if there was one person, I mean, you need hundreds of people.
Yeah.
You'd need 1,000 companies that all have this mindset. And on top of that, it's like so the ferreteria, which is like a hardware store, you have to have, for them to import this stuff, they import a lot of stuff from Mexico, which is fine because most stuff that we import into the States is made in Mexico, ironically from the same exact manufacturing plants. So they have a different name, but it's essentially the same stuff. They have to have relationships with the government officials that import all this stuff. The military runs all of the ports in the country. So you have to have a relationship with the politicians, with the military to import goods into this country. And so what I've done is I've built, years-long relationships with the owners of the really successful ferreterias. And I say, look, if I go in this direction, I want you to partner with me on the ferreteria, but I want you to import the things that are on my list. Like we need to find out how to get, the proper things in. There's really only 2 ferreterias in my area that can supply the correct plumbing parts, for example, because there's a reason why we have sanities and wipes, Ys and sweeps and tight 90s and wide 90s and all of these things. But to the smaller communities, there really is only one plumbing part. Well, 2 straight pieces and a 90. So every corner is a 90.
Wow.
And then it goes straight. And like just today, I was fixing one of the toilets wasn't flushing correctly on one of the houses. And I'm looking at this pipe and I'm like, it goes down and then comes up and then rounds a corner and then goes up a little bit higher and then it comes down. I'm like, okay, well, water runs downhill. If it's angled, you all go downhill, then toilets aren't going to flush. And so these are what I'm saying. You take things for granted. And that was a professional plumber that came out and replumbed that and then strapped that pipe up there. You know, it would, so across the board, these are just like, we don't even have to train complex trade skills. You know, we're talking like very simple type of things, but they have to have work to keep up that skill, you know. So it's like in the States, you might go, okay, I'm going to hire a plumber or a plumbing company. Here, I'm like, I want a plumbing guy, and I want to design a building that is like, that plumbing guy just knows how to do the plumbing for that building. That's all he knows. Don't change the plan. It's that building, that plumbing. He knows how to do that exactly how they were taught. And so they'll learn concepts without having to sit down and actually understand fluid dynamics. It's like, because that's kind of how they build things. It's like they just look at it and
this is probably a stupid question. You got like water pressure tanks and stuff in there, or?
Yeah. So there's two types of water: 24-hour water and water that comes every 2 or 3 days, except for the last month, which it's been coming like every week and a half. So most houses are gravity fed water, and that requires a gravity fed water system has a very specific way of plumbing water, which is everything should come down, right? You should never have something that comes down, over, and then back up again, because when the water runs out, air gets in there and mucks everything up. But that is not how they were taught. So all of these houses that have gravity fed water systems have incorrect plumbing. They plumb it as if they had water pressure. There isn't water pressure unless the water's on from the city to fill the tanks, or if they have 24-hour water, which is either something that people tap into on the down low, or if you're a business. So the gravity fed systems are then pressurized with water pumps and water tanks. They're basically they're like systems. You have a water pump that sits on top of a little pressure tank, and that provides constant pressure to the system.
So let me ask you this. You mentioned, building all these different companies and structures. What's the time frame of all that over in the DR? Is it a little bit different versus the States, or is it a little bit quicker because the structure of it?
Well, for me, I would say it probably takes me longer because like I had to learn Spanish for one. I had to, build relationships and, find people that, because, it's not like I can go to them and say, hey, I'm going to like provide this great opportunity for the community. And they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I want to be a part of that. It's more like, they'd be like, why? You want to be a pizzeria with American parts? Like, why? You want to teach us plumbing? We know plumbing. Like, we don't need that. So I kind of arrived at this space out of necessity. I started out hiring out the trades, and it just became painfully obvious to me that even the people that were regarded as experts in their trades didn't know what they were doing in a capacity of like, electricity is electricity. It's physics. It does not change from where you are at. But when you're here, it's like the understanding of the physics of electricity is just not there at all. If I wire it here, I wire it there, and now I'm good. And so, like, for things we take for granted. Maybe you know the answer. Here's a quick. When you wire a house, there's usually 3 colors. Do you know what those colors are?
I've seen a lot of movies. Red
Don't touch the red one.
No, exactly. Okay. You got the blue.
So, okay, now the trick in the question is that you inherently understand that there are multiple colors of wire, and that the different colors of wire indicate different circuits or connections. Because if you cut the red one, you're assuming that it's not connected to the blue one. Okay, here it's very possible that you open up a box and all of the wires are the same color. And it might be that all of the blue wires in that box connect to the blue and red and green wires in the other box, which then also go back to turning into black and white wires in another box. So, and that's after a professional installation. There are things like, if I showed you the service connect at the pole, you would just be like, I don't have words for that.
Wow.
Yeah, don't ever put me in that situation when I got to cut a wire. We all just gonna die. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Well, but I mean, it's just like there are things that I took for granted. Like I took for granted that it is common sense that all the red wires should connect to red wires, and all of the blue wires should connect to blue wires, and that they should be different. But that isn't the rationale. It becomes, it's wire. I take all of the wire. As long as the wire is connected and the switch turns on, then I'm good.
Absolutely. That's very interesting, man. Are you going to be around in April, out of curiosity?
No, I'll probably be out of here middle of February.
Oh, okay, gotcha. That's pretty neat, man. Because initially,
you
said usually summers. What was that?
Usually we spend the winters. The winters here.
Gotcha. That is interesting. That is very interesting, and definitely want to know more because investing is just, it could be a crazy opportunity if you're doing it right with the right people. And I definitely want to know about just the structure and stuff. A lot of people think when you hear DR, you're thinking of just water, boats, and all that good stuff. And people don't realize it's actually like the house you're living in, right? It's just like the States, but it's a little bit different. But that is interesting to me still to this point where 1%. That is crazy. Well, I think that's crazy.
But there's other things too that people don't think about that come from the States. Like, for example, right now, I'm underwriting a water plant. Like, could you imagine being in the States and buying a water plant?
No.
or an electric utility? or the like, imagine if a post office, not like a UPS, but like we're in the town I'm in right now. There is no mail service.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Right. So, it's just the opportunities are enormous because for us, like the States are saturated in terms of the things that are provided, and when you come into a place that doesn't have that saturation, like everything that you took for granted becomes an opportunity because there isn't someone who is providing that.
I think that's amazing, man. I think that's really amazing. And
dude, I'm just so enthralled in this whole thing, man. Like, I feel like I'm on the edge. I feel like I might as well be like watching a Tom Cruise movie or something, dude. Like this. I don't remember the last time I did a podcast and did 2% of the talking. Dude, this was insane, dude. Just being able to listen to everything that you have going on. And the way that you talk about it was almost, I mean, obviously you've been doing this for a while, man. So it's almost kind of like it's second nature. Like you know what I mean? Like, so being able to hear your line of thinking and your experience in this and kind of bridging these gaps between what a lot of us in the United States are doing and how we think about real estate and what you're experiencing and doing, almost just from a second nature perspective was really interesting, man. I was like sitting here just on the edge of my seat, man. I was just kind of missing some popcorn, but I was just, thank you for sharing that, man. That was really awesome. Not at all what we had planned on talking about today. So we're going to need to get you back on so we can go over the topic that we were supposed to have today. But dude, I was just so enthralled into this, man. Thank you for allowing us to be on this journey with you, to partake. It's really, really neat.
Thank you for letting me share. And I think that the more people that can be exposed to a different way of looking at opportunities as they invest, as they start looking abroad, I think that is a fantastic way to provide positive change in spaces, but also a really exciting way to utilize the skills that you're building. Like anything else, there are pitfalls, but just like the pitfalls in the States, there are solutions to those pitfalls. And it's not hard to avoid them if you know where they are. So, yeah. And, here on the island, you have three major, industries that interact, internationally. So there's a huge, like clothing manufacturing industry here. And then you have agriculture, and then tourism, and then all of the sub areas that just, make life possible. And so when you come to a place where you can, you don't realize how high of a level you're interacting until you get around people that aren't anywhere near that space. And then you start going, wait a second, I was a nobody. Like in the States, like I'm just another cog. There's 14 million people that are better at real estate than I am. Now I come here, and just the little pieces that I know allow me to navigate like a shark almost, because I think of these things differently.
I love that, bro. That's amazing. That's truly amazing. And so, John, how can they reach out to you first if you got any questions about what that looks like in the future, first DR specifics and construction and all that good things? Now, are you a licensed contractor out of curiosity, or
no, my dad is a general contractor. I grew up,
okay,
being, I call it the longest apprenticeship of anybody's life. For any of you who are general contractors and have sons or are the sons of general contractors, you'll know what I mean. So how to get a hold of me? I wish I had some cool like social media plug, but my probably Facebook under Johnathan Curry. I'm working on being more on the social media stuff, but I spent so long not in it that now I have to catch up to where everyone else is at.
So what do you need right now in your business, bro? For everybody who's watching and will be watching and listening in the future as well, what is it that you need right now? Like, what are the two things I like to always ask our guests? Like, what do you have and what do you need?
So what I have is a very strong integrator, analytical mind. And so if you're trying to take down something that's very complicated and you want to bounce that off of someone, I'm a great person for that. I have a teacher mentality. I can break really hard things down into simple things. Right now, I just started a dating partnership with a new group of people, and we're looking at properties in Georgia, North Carolina, and so I'm looking to build more relationships in the East Coast area. So if you have experience, if you're a wholesaler and you have things you're trying to get rid of, or if you have real estate connections that you want to build up, if you want to talk real estate on a remote level, those are great conversations. Because right now, the thing that building those relationships outside of Alaska and DR, and because eventually at some point we're going to need, people on the ground over there. And so, yeah.
No Kentucky.
I'm not going to say not Kentucky. This is the thing. Like once you break out of your physical restraints of your environment, you'll find that you have to say no so that you can stay focused. But opportunity lies where responsibility has been abdicated. So wherever people aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, you can make a buck.
Dude, I love that. Say that again. Responsibility. No, what'd you say? Repeat that again. That was so good.
Responsibility lies or opportunity lies where responsibility has been abdicated.
Dang, I love that.
So if you're looking for opportunities, you have to find where people have given up the responsibility that they should be taking on. This is where we find, pre-foreclosures are people that, they have a responsibility, they've abdicated it. Here in DR, how do you spin up a contracting company? Well, if they were top-notch contractors here, I wouldn't even be thinking about it. I'd be hiring them. As real estate investors, some of us are looking to make more money. Other people are looking to solve problems. Some people look to make money by solving problems. So a problem is just something that occurs out of a responsibility that has been abdicated. So,
dude, well said. I wrote that down, man. That was awesome. Dude, you're dropping nuggets and just throwing bombs the whole freaking show, man. I'm just enthralled, dude. Thank you for sharing that, Johnathan. I appreciate you, buddy.
For the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're definitely going to have you on again. So there's definitely going to be a part 2.
Fantastic.
Yeah, dude, that was awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I'm definitely going to go back and re-listen to this again. I had like so many ideas just kind of going off as you were thinking, or as you were explaining things, man. So yeah, thank you again. I hope you have an awesome time. I hope you have a Merry Christmas, and send Chris and I some sunshine. Well, Chris, I think I'm going to send Chris some of my snow. If you could send me some of the sunshine, that would be awesome.
I'll take some of your snow too. I mean, it is nice, but when you come from Alaska and then you come down to 85 degrees, like I have a fan on me right now, so my air conditioning, I'm working on getting it installed, but we just went an hour on what that might look like. So.
Oh, I love this. Opportunity lies where responsibility has abdicated. That's a forehead tattoo. Oh, man, this was awesome, man. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for being here. If you guys aren't part of our group, Chris and I have been working on some things quietly, almost too quietly behind the scenes. So if you guys are not part of our group, please go join our Facebook group, The House of Cards with Chris James and Jesse Stanton. We got some really cool things that are in the works. I guess that's all I'll say on that, but make sure you guys are paying attention to what's going to happen in that group, especially within the next week, I would say. We got some really awesome things coming up. So really excited to share some more stuff with you guys. I think it's going to help a lot of people. I think it's going to impact a lot of people more than they would have anticipated. So we'll just keep it there. But thank you again, Johnathan. I appreciate you, buddy. I love you, brother. Hope you have a wonderful and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to all of you.
Thanks for listening to the House of Cards podcast with Chris James and Jesse Stanton. We hope you've enjoyed this episode and have learned something new about real estate investing. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more tips and tricks. And don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Until next time.